In 2024, Marketers Alchemy welcomed some of the most brilliant pioneers in their fields, leaders from Nationwide, Meta, PepsiCo, and many more. As we often say on the show, marketing is an art and data is a science. Our guests embodied that philosophy, sharing what's top of mind for them, the successes and challenges of their campaigns, and their visions for the future. In this special episode, we're bringing you the highlights, the very best insights from last year's conversations. Let's dive in.
We all generate all kinds of data every day, right? Just because of what we do, how we're connected to the world. And so these crumbs that we leave behind, this is something that for me is specifically very interesting. And so that's what we are trying to also capture. And so to do that, we are building capabilities that are helping us not only see that data, but analyze it in a way that is adding more value than the traditional data sources. So there's also a big focus on what type of data helps us understand the behavior better. And again, how do we need to internalize it and analyze it overall to make sense out of that? And again, define decisions for the business, for the brands. I think we're not in a shortage of data, I would say, right? Like, you probably talk to many companies and you know this, especially in North America. I think we're very, very spoiled with that and given a ton of access today. So for us, the most common sources, I would say, are what probably most companies have access to as well: retail data, panel data, third-party data overall. We also generate second-party data and first-party data as well. We use it obviously with very strict data privacy guidelines and responsible use of information. However, all of these data sources are really important for us because we can't, this is what feeds the intelligence and overall capabilities to then generate and produce actionable insights. In most places that I've been in, we have way too much data that we can absorb. So it's very important to not just have access to data, but be very clear about what we want to do with that data and collect it, not for the sake of having it, but actually for the sake of pairing it with tools and capabilities that really help us understand what we can go and do with it. I do think that every data and everything that we do has to be connected to curiosity. We have to be curious. We have to ask the question why or what if. And we also have to do a little bit more of what I really believe probably sets insights apart from just data is, what if we completely changed how we approach this, right? So like, if it ain't broken, let's fix it anyway type of mentality, right? So put more confidence that the consumer takeoff, the consumer interest will be there. So I do think that there's a little bit of balancing act between what the data tells you, what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to do as a brand, who you are as a brand to the consumer, and then taking some risks.
The most strategic data points we have is, what do we know about our customers and what do we have to do to convince them? And the thing that's really interesting here is that we don't have an existing category we're playing in. We're really at the beginning of creating a category and selling a new kind of device. And so a lot of what we do is make sure that our strategy is grounded on what do we know about our customers and what they're looking for in terms of value and insights, and how can we appeal to their passions. After that, we really have like two sets of data. I would say the data we use to measure the success of our marketing efforts. And so for that, we look at incrementality. So both incrementality in upper funnel, incrementality in lower funnel, and then the more traditional metrics that are operational, which help us guide decisions about which creative is working, which creators are working, things like that. We also look at considerations, and not just do you know what the product is, but do you understand it enough, have enough research to go in and purchase it. We look at purchase intent, and then we actually go all the way down to incremental sales. So we measure incremental sales, not just in direct response, but also in upper funnel metrics, because there are some people who, after seeing a TV ad, will purchase the product, and we want to be able to track that all the way through. And the amazing thing is we can do that because a lot of our advertising is actually on our own platforms. When you set up the glasses, you link it to your Meta account. So we can, on the back end, know who saw our ad, who purchased, even if you ended up purchasing in store, for example, right? Which is really amazing. And so our incremental sales from launch were 3.5 higher than our goal. and we contributed a significant percent to overall sales. So again, this is the value of the data on the back end and proving to the organization that this is a good investment. I think that for too long, we've said marketing can't be measured as both an art and a science. And I agree, it is still art, but I think that if you want to be a true partner to the business, you have to be able to show your impact. And so the first thing I would do is I would sit down with whoever controls the budget and really sit down and say, are these the goals that are important to us? And then is this how marketing can contribute? Do we agree that these are the metrics? If so, then you have everything you need for your decision science team, your insights team to set up campaigns that will help you determine whether or not you achieve that goal. So I think the idea of like just being really clear on the objective, having business support for that objective, and then being able to measure it and talk about it is really important. I really love how we're democratizing marketing. For such a long time, it was a small group of people, whether that be brand owners, marketing teams, and agencies pushing out messages into general population and saying, this is the way you should think about something. And that power is really gone because now we have these amazing creators who have so much influence. And when brands try to come in a really heavy-handed way, they get slapped. But brands that do it really well, they're just like, they're rewarded. So I love that sort of shift of power to average people.
I think we are really focused on the customer journey and how the data sort of fits in the places along the customer journey. So the answer to that question is a little different based on where that customer is in the journey. And then we also know that there's a buyer's journey in the B2B space in terms of our distribution partners. And so data also helps us move B2B buyers through their journey, recognizing that they come to their job with a sort of a different set of decision makers, but they're still people as they move through, right? So, in those places, you're looking at that combination of that business data and that personal data at those right moments. And we call that sort of magical kismet of data and journey when you hit that moment that matters. And then, we try to create those moments that matter. So we're putting the marketing in the right place in the journey, whether that be with one of our members who might be in a research phase or whether it's one of our long-term members. And furthermore, we understand what's happening in the weather in that very unique geography, and we can help them take steps to protect themselves before the storm hits, for example. It takes a lot of different pieces coming together. So, you can't just have data, right? You have to have that data moved into technology that allows you to access it and that is connected to your marketing technology. So really this Martech kind of space becomes like incredibly critical. And so we have a number of tools that sort of knit together our technology data lakes and our connection of the right data into the right systems for us to be able to pull insights. And then once you kind of have the insights that are connected then to the journey work, then you need a whole other set of technology and systems and processes in order to be able to use that data in the right place within the marketing. And that sort of interconnectivity of our different technology systems becomes a really big part of the story. That message at the right time is really important. And, that's where your data has to also kind of be melted. And I love the alchemy piece of it, right? With your market research, right? When we first started talking about personalization, I feel like people were saying, you know what? Once we get to personalization, it's going to be so one-to-one. We won't even need segmentation anymore. We won't even need market research anymore. Like we'll just look at the data and that'll just drive us to, what does this one individual person want to do? And to some extent, you can look at the data and it'll give you a certain amount of information, where they are in your journey, what might interest them, what they respond best to. And the more you sort of store those things and then use them for the next time, the better the experience becomes for the person, right? But it doesn't actually end up negating the need to do really good and smart research to understand what the options are in messaging for different kinds of people and to be able to then use technology to amplify those in different ways that feel tailored more to the one-to-one. I think one of the things that's recently come out in some of our research that I find really, really interesting is, we've always known when it comes to insurance that there are folks who really see insurance as protection, and that there are folks who truly more see their homeowner's policy, let's say, as a way to not have to save up for a new roof, right? Like it's, they think of it as their home improvement policy. And so, as we started to study those who we knew were really, really more focused on protection, I think one thing that was surprising was we sort of thought they would get with a protection focused company. The data told us that they were more loyal, that they stay with you and they retain better. And so there was an assumption that meant they weren't shopping as much as the other customers. But it turns out they are shopping, but they just are hard to unseat because they care a lot about the coverage. And so they do want to make sure they're getting the right price. They do want to make sure that they're checking sort of how their insurance fits on a regular basis in their plan. So that shopping behavior is there, but you have a different kind of bar that you have to reach and get through in order to keep those kinds of customers. So it's a great example of where the data is right, but it also sort of is more to the story.
Ultimately, the usage of data is really to achieve a level of personalization that provides a great experience for homeowners and pros. And that great experience comes in multiple shapes and forms. Is the actual product experience when you're on Thumbtack, whether that's the native app or the website, being able to go through the flow to finding the pro that you're looking for in a very personalized way. Feeling and knowing that Thumbtack understands what you want and what you need and helps you get there in a seamless, very streamlined way. The other is tailoring the communications. When you think about CRM and lifecycle marketing, whenever you get a push notification or an email, you will get it personalized to you, right? With basic personalization like your name and your address and things like that are very logical, but more advanced personalization around, hey, you've been looking for this, or you took that action on the website and you have a pro who just answered one of your questions, come back and continue the journey, and helping people go to the next action or take the next action that's going to get them to achieve their goals. I'll tell you something, and this is a very important mindset and culture that we have here at Thumbtack. It's experimentation. We don't presume that we know everything our customers and pros want or need, right? We make informed hypotheses and we experiment all the time, right? And that experimentation is basically our DNA. We will make informed decisions. We will say, okay, we believe that if we change this flow or we add this feature, we're adding value to the customers. But at the end of the day, customers, homeowners, and pros are king, and they tell us what works and doesn't work. It's the same thing with communication and marketing creatives and assets and TV ads and so on. You may think that something that you're building is going to be amazing and you'll love it and it makes a lot of sense to you. But at the end of the day, the only opinion that matters is a customer. And if they don't like it, they'll tell you very quickly. They'll not use it. They won't click on it. They won't engage with it. And that's where you need to be humble as a marketer, listen to the feedback and pivot. What did we learn? And then how it changed. And that happens all the time, right? We always make assumptions about what customers want. And what's important is to be tuned in to what they're telling us, how they engage with the experiences, and adjust and adapt to provide really what they need, not what we think they need.
I think that the one thing that we do somewhat differently to many other vendors in our space who offer BI tools, who offer Gen AI tools, we serve up those insights within the CRM. So you want to know what lead is more likely to convert? It's right there in your dashboard first thing in the morning as a BDR rep. You want to know what opportunity you should be spending more time on because it has a better ICP fit, ideal customer profile fit, and or it's more likely to close because guess what? It matches a profile of many of the customers that you have already as a sales rep. You have that front and center. So you're not having to go to your data science team. You're not having to go to a function, a set of human beings to make sense of that for you. It's served up right there in front of you in your workflow for you to action immediately. And I think that, a lot of that has to do for us, Catherine, with we serve businesses that look a lot like sugar, and we're an impatient business, and time is money. And we also don't have the deep pockets of many enterprises. So we had to fast find a way to serve up those data and those insights in an integrated fashion, but in a way that was very actionable, because that is what our ideal customer profile expects. I want to be clear, because I know that this is front and center for a lot of businesses who are looking to generative AI and large language models to help bolster, insights, not necessarily actionable insights, but insights that they want to help grow their business, make their business more efficient. Security and ethics is obviously a massively important part of how you are handling that data, what you're doing with that data. And I think it's incumbent on us as vendors to really help others understand that, we've got them as customers, and so that's also something that our product team take very, very seriously as they do continue to evolve and build out the capabilities that we're offering. Whenever I'm being asked, Claire, is there opportunity to go look at growing a segment? Or whenever I am, as I do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, looking at our core KPIs, there's probably instinct that kicks in terms of, why are those conversions not looking the way that they are? But I hate to say it, I will always go back to the data set to help instruct, guide, form a discussion or a debate, with the team that I need to understand what's going on with those conversion rates, or why has the website traffic dropped off. I may offer up initially a gut instinct as to why. Oh, it's July, 4th of July, everybody's gone out for the holidays. But I wouldn't necessarily draw any firm conclusions or actions based on instinct. And I think that's why, for me, I love the interplay of the two. So are there signals out there in the market in these accounts that are going to allow us to get a jump start on engaging with an account? Selling is hard. And, we come before all of that, but it can take time to convince somebody that they even have a need, to help them understand how you fit. And so what we did was we married the insight from our platform about where we knew we could be successful with intent signals. And we did that to vet and validate these long lists of accounts that sales felt like we needed to go pursue. And it probably won't surprise you that the list that we ended up with looked very different to the list that we started with. Why do I use that as a success story of, how we've used data? One, because I think it gave us the opportunity to work collaboratively with our sales counterparts, without whom we can't be successful anyway. And it also takes the buyers out of who should be on that list in the first place, and where, quite frankly, sales and marketing should be spending their precious dollars and their precious time. I'm a big believer in experimentation. And so in that list, we left, I think we landed on, it was either 10 or 15% of those accounts. We said to the salesperson, look, you say you've got relationships, you say you know that account, here's your zone for experimentation, but we're not banking on it. We're not banking on it. And I think that's also a great philosophy, and something I would encourage marketing to do more of when working with sales counterparts. As you're collaborating with them to build that target account list, give them the space to do what they do best, and what they believe in and what they believe to be true. But just don't bank your KPIs on them being successful. And then that way I feel like you end up with a bit of a win-win for everyone, right? The salesperson feels listened to, but they've gotten to, as you say, they've gotten to trust you as you've gone through that exercise of using data to vet and validate and ensure that you are teeing them up for success. And I think the other thing that came out of that exercise, Catherine, really importantly, was a ready-made list of target stakeholders in that account for that salesperson to get on the phone to and reach out to, when what they came to us with was just a set of accounts.
As a marketing team for a product like we do, marketing the product to marketing channels is really important. So the first data source is actually marketing channel data in terms of how people engage, click, convert, subscribe, download, all of that data. Because we are rolling over your old 401ks into an IRA, transactional data therefore becomes really important. So it's stored in our CRM and in our Postgres database. So to understand the pipeline of what's coming. But then the last, but certainly not the least, is behavioral data. So it's what people actually do in the app, on the website, in their online account. We call it the beehive. How many pensions do they add? How many times they log in? All of that information is really important. So you start to get a really nice view of a particular customer. Because the reality is, Catherine, when you're 50 years old, you might be 50 and thinking about retirement, or you might be 50 and thinking, no way thinking about retirement whatsoever. The frequency you use a product, or where you come from, or what you do in the product can really be different. So those three data sources are really important to really have that almost like that tailored experience for our customers. So that's when we started to realize that emotion plays a big part in what we offer. We started to remove the products more and more from our advertising and focusing more on the emotional layer. Our campaign from last year had no product shots whatsoever in the advertising. So completely going on the actual message you're trying to portray. And I think that's been the biggest learning for me as a financial marketeer is, yes, it's great to focus on problem solution. But if you really want to establish yourself as a direct-to-consumer proposition, you've got to do more than just showing that. You have to hone in on what does the product actually do to your customer in the end. Financial products can be hugely important in the direction of your life. So talk about that, show that to the customer.
The reason I love talking about failure is because once you fail once, you never make that same mistake again. I would say my biggest failure was at Twitter. In 2019, we did some research and we found that only 5% of users were creating 90% of the content. That's a sobering statistic. And so the next question you ask is why? And the answer was fear. People were afraid to tweet. And so what we determined is that fear was a significant barrier to content creation. And we looked at the competitive landscape and we saw that ephemeral products like Instagram and Snapchat stories were hugely popular. And so, not rocket science, let's do this too. And so we tested in lots of markets. We tested in Korea, we tested in Italy, we tested in Brazil. And you know what we found? Nobody wanted to use it. The train had left the station. And so we launched. So we built something that we wanted. We didn't build the thing that people wanted. And so within 8 months, it failed. Your gut instinct is always a good starting point. But then you have to validate. And that is the most important thing I've learned as a marketer is you are not your end customer. And so if you are building exactly what you want, you run the risk, but you are not building for the person that you were trying to convert, that you were trying to change their behavior. And that is a recipe for disaster. I'm like, who is the audience for this? It's not me. It does not matter if I like this ad. What matters is, does the person I'm trying to reach like this ad? Is this going to resonate with them?
Trigger marketing for life insurance is really about life events. And so whether it is an individual getting married, having their first child, buying their first home, those are all really big triggers for having life insurance or starting the process of looking for life insurance. And luckily, there are some platforms out there, Google Ads, for example, they actually have a life events category. And in that life events category, you can drill down and actually see this person is, having a child, they're buying their first home, different things like that. And Google's building that based off of all of the search intent that user has. I don't like to admit that because I am very data driven, but there are definitely times that we have to go with a gut feeling. A good example of this is really when we're talking to our sales agents and we hear feedback from them anecdotally that this campaign, the leads from it are not working or something along those lines for whatever reason. Maybe it's bad contact info, so people aren't submitting, correct phone numbers and things like that. So what we really do is we take that into consideration. We'll look into the campaign and into the leads and determine if it is statistically significant. So if they're saying, for example, that the information isn't correct that they're being provided, does that fall within the normal range of a campaign? So, if 50% of that campaign's leads have bad contact, well, that's way outside of what we would expect. And so in that scenario, then we have a very good case for making significant changes to the campaign.
We just like the flexibility to be able to be nimble and do what we want when we want to do it. And so that we believe that's been part of our competitive advantage. When you take a look at central bank, if you were to ask us what our competitive advantage really is, it's that we believe we can have the same level of technology that all the big boys can have because we're building it ourselves. And we have the flexibility to decide this is what's important and we want to move quickly on these things. So same level of technology, but be closer to the customer than they can by living in these small communities and have boots on the ground. So closer to the customer than the big boys can be, but offer the same level of technology. And as a result, we actually own all of that technology. We believe very heavily in owning our own destiny. Our goal with everything that the bank is doing is we want you to call us your primary bank. And in order to do that, we want to try to funnel everything into our app so that you can experience everything you need. Primacy for us is everything. And I'll go back to kind of what I said a little bit earlier. If I was to ask you who your primary bank is, you're probably going to tell us it's where your checking account is. What's happened in our industry today is that so many single service financial companies are out there. Right. So in the old days, that's probably was true. If you had your checking account with us, you probably had your mortgage with us, maybe a credit card, car loan, whatever it was. Today, that's not necessarily the case. Most people choose their credit card based on their affiliation with maybe it's their Marriott or their Southwest or their Hilton, you name it, whatever, it gets you excited about credit cards. That's where you're getting a credit card today. Well, that's always been our bread and butter as a bank, is that we want to be a full service bank so that we can have all of those conversations with you. Because once we do that, we know, because of the data that we have, we know that you're ready to start thinking about owning a home. We know that you're ready to start thinking about changing your credit card or buy a car, whatever else it is that the bank can add value to help you with. For us, it's really about personalization. Just as you and I were talking about earlier, those insights, it's continuing to build more of those. Even if it's something as simple as a quiz to kind of help you answer your own questions in our mobile app to kind of help do something better for you. But, I have found out personalization is desired. And so while we don't want to be creepy about the things we know about you, customers do want those offers or suggestions. And I kind of learned this weird lesson. We have debit cards just like every bank does. I've had maybe 3 versions, a couple sports ones and a standard one. Anyway, we had the opportunity to put a bunch out there. So I sent it over to the graphic team and said, go design some cards. And so they did. And then we took them out for fun and had people vote on them. And they were crazy cards. And like, guys, this is so off brand for us. But for fun, we took them to a high school and said, which would you choose? And so we launched 8 new cards, and just for fun. And they have become the most chosen cards in our portfolio. I've got 300,000 debit cards sitting out there. And the most popular ones are, which just floors me, is this pink one, right? A pink tech one, and art strokes. But the reason this is important to me, and it's kind of a life lesson, is that this is the personalization customers want, even in what's sitting in their wallets. And so we kind of use that to drive the decisions we're making now, is to get more and more personalized with anything that we're offering. So personalization is probably number one key for us going forward.
See what I mean? Our guests offer such valuable insights and practical tips, and we hope you can apply them to your own work. Whether you're analyzing data to refine personalization strategies, optimize targeting efforts, or partnering with creators to amplify your brand, there's something here for you. To hear the full episodes with these incredible guests, check out the links in the show notes. Until next time, I'm Catherine Chernoff, and this is Marketers Alchemy.